Consciously Creating Circumstances by George W. Plummer. This innocuous-looking little book by George Winslow Plummer is full of metaphysical dynamite capable of effects baleful or beneficent according to what I may call the innate altruism and enlightenment of the person who essays to employ the techniques herein set forth. For this particular teaching, though, couched in a form capable of being grasped by the average reader, is really a fragment of a most ancient and abstruse wisdom, jealously guarded by its custodians throughout the world and adown the ages on account of its potency for evil when misapplied. The Rosicrucian fraternity has ever been, from far back, one of those custodians. And as Dr. Plummer is not only a member of the Society of Rosicrucians, but a leader thereof, I infer that he knows and assumes the responsibilities involving in placing so much power, for knowledge is power, in the hands of any chance reader of the book, regardless of his rectitude. He is probably right in taking this chance, because when the house is on fire, one throws all the valuables out of the window in the hopes of saving them, regardless of what may become of the rest. Now that this house of all humanity, the world, is so ablaze, he does well to place this knowledge at the disposal of everyone, because the situation can be saved only by such realizations coupled with such a code of action on the part of men of goodwill, as are here set forth with such precision and clarity. The chance that the teachings of the book may be abused must be taken therefore. The precautionary and warning note is sounded, to be sure, by Dr. Plummer in his final chapter, and in such admonitions as, having satisfied yourself that your predominating desire is worthy, that it involves no harm or detriment to another, and that it will work out to the advantage of others besides yourself. But I had an uncle, and there are many like him, who had no difficulty in satisfying himself as to all these things when putting through one of his shady, even nefarious schemes to his own advantage. Therefore, while highly recommending this book to those whose life and character have made them ready to receive its teachings, I am constrained to remind every reader that he who would wield Excalibur should have not only the strong arm, but the unselfish and compassionate heart of King Arthur. Claude Bragdon. Chapter 1. The Source of Power. It is evident that the great, successful, or happy people of this world have access to some power that obscure, unhappy failures know little or nothing about. A power which erring men call chance. Perhaps you think it's just good luck that brings success, and let it go at that. But you miss something very important if you think that. This is written for those willing to consider the possibility that something other than just luck or heredity bestows happiness on one and failure on another. This book describes a method of attack on the problems of life that thousands of happy people of merely average abilities have successfully employed. Yes, countless thousands, even though many of them did not realize what they were using. If you seek help and are not afflicted with a closed mind, you can use the same power that has served these people. I can and will tell you about it. We shall start with a few ideas that you and I cannot avoid agreeing on, and then base the rest of our work on what we mutually agree is so. Let us, in short, consider the reason of the case, for nothing is law that is not reason. As we look about us in the world, our senses inform us that it is full of objects, of all sorts: houses, trees, people. We give the general name of things or forms to these objects. Closer inspection informs us that each object has its individual characteristics, such as odor, density, firmness, weight, color, and we find that these objects are made of the same substances in varying physical or chemical combinations. So we say that the objects composing our environment are made of matter, and the state in which matter usually appears is visible. Now, as we look more intently, we observe that there are other conditions in our world that are invisible. We see the fall of an apple to the ground from a tree. The cause of the fall remains invisible. Forces of many kinds are evidently in play. We do not see the forces of energies themselves, but they are the causes of all of that we do see. What we see are the results, called phenomena or actions, and states of being. Plants, animals, and human bodies change in size, but we do not see the energy that makes them increase. We observe people moving about, but we do not see what makes them move about. We think, but we do not see our thoughts. We listen to the radio, send telegrams, speak over the telephone, or push a button for lights in our rooms, but we do not see the energy on the way. We see a hen pecking about the poultry yard. In a short time, she lays an egg, which in due time becomes a chicken, and later that chicken becomes the full-grown bird, reproducing the process of life. A great drama of forces constantly unfolds before us. So observation teaches us correctly that we live not only in a visible world of matter, but also in an invisible world of forces and energies that produce the visible things in our environment. We recognize these visible forms, and we sense the invisible forces behind them through a power we call mind. No human being has ever seen mind. Yet, the existence of such a power is the most obvious thing in all our understanding. Everything in this world about us that man has produced began as a thought in the mind of some man. Your home existed in the builder's mind before it took form. Your car took form first in the maker's mind. Everything that we do, individually or collectively, begins first in the thought of the thing. No matter how suddenly we do things at times, we think of it first. Sometimes we act quickly on the thought. Sometimes we have to wait until we can develop conditions favorable to its accomplishment. Also, as we look about us, we observe many forms of matter that were not produced by the hand of man, for they express characteristics that no human being has ever produced. Man cannot create a tree, for instance, or an ocean, or a robin. Yet, they too must have begun in mind. In what mind and with what thought did they begin? Before answering the last question, let's look around us some more. We observe that the plant of yesterday is a bit higher today. The little child of last year is larger and abler. We note certain changes in ourselves with the advance of time. We cannot see what causes this increase in size, ability, etc. But the fact stares us in the face. Look again, this time at another class of things. That building, begun a few weeks ago, is steadily increasing in size. A railroad has increased its mileage. A bridge is ready for the last span. We can see what makes them increase is the hand of man. So we have before us two different pictures of increase. One springs from the efforts of man on the visible plane. The other is directed from some invisible plane and is not due to man's efforts. These changes in our environment we call growth. We note that this growth is affected by man in some cases, and by some other power or agency in other cases, but originating in some mind somewhere in every case. Now, let us try to discover whether there are really two kinds of growth, one caused by man and one caused by something else. There seems to be two, but is it truly so? No sensible person believes that man just happened. He too is a phenomenon, a fact with an invisible cause. We have agreed that this cause can only be man or something other than man. But man did not cause himself. Something else brought him into being. Therefore, this something else causes not only mountains and oceans, which are beyond man's control, but also causes everything that man appears to cause, because it caused man himself to come into existence. Thus, we see that there is but one basic cause of all things that are or ever were. We therefore call it the Great First Cause. Some call it God, some call it Spirit. Whatever term we use, we remember that it operates through mind. And, since it causes all things, universal mind. Though some people tie this fact up with a religion or theology, the acceptance of a universal mind is imperative from the standpoint of simple logic alone. All power comes from one source today, just as it did before the beginning of things. This great invisible cause acts through what we term universal mind, the intelligence directing all the forces that produced man and through which man, on a much smaller scale, produces the various changes in his environment.